That's really our primary focus, is just to help people be educated in the fact that even though 75% of all of our assets are typically in non-cash, 90% of what we give to nonprofits and churches is in cash. So how do we educate people to understand the paradigm that there's many different ways that we can give beyond just writing a check or having a deposit come from our bank account directly to the church?
Hey everyone, welcome to Stewardship Leader. I'm Leo Sabo, and today I have the pleasure of having Paul Cooper, the president of Helping Hand Ministries. He is a friend. He's been a stewardship pastor. Paul, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Leo. Appreciate you having me on today.
Well, it's so great to have you on. You guys are also a partner of CSN. So I wanted you to come on and share more about your ministry. Tell us how you guys do what you do, who you are, how you help the body of Christ, Christians, and also the church. But let's first start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey to become the president of this ministry, and how God orchestrated everything for you to be here. And then we can get into the ministry itself.
All right, awesome. Well, I won't go back too deep. I did start off in the corporate world for many years and moved down to Sarasota, Florida back in '09, and got acquainted with Bayside Community Church and got involved in serving there. And after a few years, I was hired to be the stewardship pastor. It was a new ministry, and the lead pastor, Randy Bezette, asked me if I would create that ministry. Of course, I think the first week on the job, I was introduced to CSN and got to know you and some of the other leaders of CSN, and which was hugely impactful for me as I was trying to create that ministry at Bayside. And so fast forward 10, 11 years later, this came time for me to make a change. God called me into a different role here at Helping Hands, and my connection was Helping Hands would come alongside and help me when people were giving non-cash gifts to Bayside.
Mm.
And so when I was, again, new to that ministry, new to creating that, really did not know how to handle those kind of gifts to the church. And as God would have it, the CEO of Helping Hands happened to have just moved down to Sarasota from our home office in Tallulah Falls, Georgia. And I got introduced to him and started using Helping Hands in these non-cash gifts. And so when it came time for me to leave my position at Bayside, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to come and serve as president for the organization." That's kind of how I ended up here, and kind of a little bit of a background of my journey from stewardship pastor to now as president of Helping Hands.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I do love how God usually equips us for the next assignment when we don't even know it. So I love the fact that you were a stewardship pastor, understood both the stewardship and the generosity side of discipling people. And now you're able to really help people to understand generosity and even facilitate it much better than most people, most churches know how to do. So grateful for you guys and what you do. Let's get into what does the ministry really do? Who are you guys? What do you stand for? What are you trying to accomplish through this ministry?
Yeah. So again, a little backstory. Helping Hands Ministries was created by Terry Parker, Ron Blue, and Larry Burkett. They started the National Christian Foundation, which I'm sure a lot of people have utilized over the years, and a great organization that is helping people be generous through their donor advised funds.
Right.
But about 10 years later, they realized there was still a space that wasn't being utilized in the nonprofit world, and specifically churches and Christian nonprofits, and again in this space of non-cash gifts. And so they created Helping Hands Ministries to kind of come alongside of the National Christian Foundation and work together in the different offices around the country. And so that's primarily how we were founded, was to focus on non-cash gifts. And now, of course, over the last 25, 30 years, we've been able to expand and offer other opportunities of giving and generosity through our different ministries. But that's really the precursor of where we are today, going back to the late '80s with National Christian Foundation, and then the late '90s with Helping Hands Ministries.
That's great. So let's get into the specifics of how you guys do that. What exactly do you do? How do you help individuals and churches?
Yeah, so we can again come alongside of the churches and different nonprofits through non-cash gifts. So if someone has let's say, for example, they have a home they want to donate, we help them eliminate the capital gains taxes on that gift. So instead of just donating the proceeds of a sale of a home to a church or a nonprofit, they could donate it to us as a 501c3, and we could help them eliminate those capital gains taxes. And so that's really
Nice.
the goal here is not for someone to take the savings and go buy a new house or a new car. It's to take the tax savings and transfer it over to the church so they can actually give more. And so that's our main way of helping individuals and churches in that capacity. And so that's what we've been doing again for all these years. Again, just trying to be creative and different opportunities for people to be more generous to their church or nonprofit of choice.
Yeah, that's great. Such a huge need. Many churches, they only do, what you call cash gifts, right? From income, from earned income. And it's unfortunate because, as we know, we have an aging population, baby boomers, and some Gen Xers are getting to the point where pretty soon they'll be living off of their investments. And if some of them have been diligent to multiply what God has given them, it makes more sense to them and to the church, obviously, to be able to receive gifts that are tax deductible, more can be given. So that can be maximize generosity. So it's such a great ministry that you guys have because I know there are others out there that do this, but most churches, they don't want to try to work with five different types of organizations depending on the type of gift. They want to have one place that they can go to and get that transaction accomplished and get the wisdom and the knowledge they need to get it done well. So that's great. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the core values of your ministry. Tell us. I mean, I'm sure this comes from the vision that was originally given to the founder, but talk about that so that our audience understands kind of the heart behind your ministry.
Yeah, again, in a nutshell, it's just to help people be more generous in
Mm,
giving to Christian nonprofits and churches. Any way we can help accomplish that through our unique giving strategies, that's our ultimate goal. And so, and again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but there's a lot of different things that we can do and opportunities to help be a blessing to churches beyond just the non-cash gifts. That's really our primary focus is just to help people be educated in the fact that even though 75% of all of our assets are typically in non-cash, 90% of what we give to nonprofits and churches is in cash. So how do we educate people to understand the paradigm that there's a many different ways that we can give beyond just writing a check or having a deposit come from our bank account directly to the church?
what other ways that you guys help individuals give? I understand that obviously you work with churches to help them through this process, but how do you help individuals and how does that look?
Yeah, so we do I guess the simplest way to explain it would be a Christian GoFundMe. So I think
Mm,
everyone's kind
okay.
of heard of GoFundMe. We can do a project for individuals, ministries, nonprofits, both in the US and internationally, and allow people to give to that just like you would to a GoFundMe. The difference would be is that because we are a nonprofit, we can give a tax receipt for any donations that are given to that project.
Mm,
And so, but we vet the individual or organization. We require two letters of recommendation. We look at their financial information to see if this is a legitimate need. And
mhm,
then if once we vet them and approve them, then we will create the project, put it on our website, put it on socials, and send them a link they could then send to their family and friends, and people can then give to that. So it could be anything from a missions trip for we built a Bible college in Uganda.
oh, nice.
There's specific, building wells in Africa. It can be anywhere again in the U.S. And it can be anything from medical bills, or providing a vehicle. So any kind of need necessarily, we can help them through developing of these projects. And the difference also of GoFundMe, again, also we're 501c, so I mentioned that we can get the tax deduction
Mhm,
receipt for gifting, but we also again vet them, which again GoFundMe is not going to do. But thirdly, is we don't pay the individual or the organization; we pay the vendor
mm,
directly. So if it's a situation where it's a medical situation, we're going to pay the doctors, the hospital bills, we're going to pay them directly. So there's a level of accountability. So as a donor, I know that if someone is telling me they have a financial hardship because of medical bills,
Mhm.
I know that money is actually going to pay for the medical bills. It's not going to go to the individual,
Yeah.
and which could also be detrimental to them for if it's income. If they're on Medicare or Medicaid, it can cause an issues there as well. So there's a lot of different advantages that we can offer that you can't get through giving it through a GoFundMe.
Yeah. Man, that's really, really valuable because so often people want to give. I know my initial reaction when I see someone who has a need is I want to give, but there's so much I don't know. I
Right.
don't know if the need is genuine. I don't know if the funding is going to go to the right person. No one's doing that due diligence. So I'm so excited to hear that you guys do that. And also something that occurred to me is in some churches there are people who, just as scripture says, we're supposed to take care of the widows, the fatherless, and the stranger. And sometimes the benevolence program allows us to help a person long term, right? I know when I worked on staff at a church, one of the responsibilities I had for a season, and then the department was connected to stewardship, was the care department. And that meant sometimes financial assistance. And so, have you guys used this? I'm just thinking kind of a little bit outside the box. Have you used this maybe in a situation like that where our church wants to do this, but maybe they're a small church, maybe they don't have the means to do the due diligence to understand how to set that up so that they're able to give it without making sure that this person doesn't lose maybe SSI benefits or other types of benefits. Is that an option for churches to use in the benevolence section?
Yes, yeah. So we have done that in the past for some churches, and like you said, it's typically a smaller to mid-sized church. It really doesn't
Mhm.
have the resources or the time that would go into trying to vet the process. And I think we all would love to help everyone as much as possible, but we just
Mhm.
can't sometimes. And so
Right.
yeah, we can work with the churches and kind of manage that. We have coordinators again that will reach out. Every church kind of has different parameters that they let us know. Here's how we want to do this. And sometimes it's they approve the person first and send it on to us. Sometimes they say, we'll let you guys handle the whole process. And, they're just going to be the recommending agency and the funder for the project. So it really depends on the church and how they want to proceed. And so we can definitely come alongside churches and help in that process as well.
Great. It's great. All right. So, a personal question for you: how did you become the donor giving specialist?
I think just over the years, we've kind of most everything we've done has been word of mouth, which not a lot of advertising, minus maybe a few conferences here and there. It's mostly word of mouth from one business owner to the next, one church to the next, one individual to the next. And so that's kind of how we. And it didn't happen overnight, just like any organization, But here in the last, I would say, 7 years, we've really exponentially grown as more and more people are made aware of what we do and the services that we offer. And again, the reputation we have built. And so that's really, God just has opened the doors and blessed us. If you're in this space and you hear those names of our founders, most people know who they are, and that gives some credibility.
No
And
doubt.
our CEO has been trained by Terry Parker for the last 26 years. So when you have someone like that, pouring into and training, it becomes again, having that name alone helps build credibility. And so we just believe that it all belongs to God and it's God's money for God's people and God's purposes, and that's kind of what we focus on. And if it meets that criteria, we're going to move forward and try to help the individual or the organization the best we can.
Funding your church's mission is vital. Mortarstone partners with churches to provide data driven insights and strategies that grow generosity and fund kingdom impact. Unlock your church's giving potential with Mortarstone. Learn more at mortarstone.com.
You're right. I mean, being founded by those gentlemen automatically makes it a ministry that should be definitely considered and looked at.
Yeah.
All right, great. Hey, I one of the things that occurred to me as you were speaking is there are, if you're familiar with John Reinhardt, Gospel Patrons, he's specifically speaking to people that are business people, people that have been able to build wealth and have a desire to be those patrons that support ministries. And I could see a ministry like yours really coming along and saying, "You have a heart for that. Let us help you to do that." And so, do you have some examples, maybe just one, of someone like that that has a heart that wanted to help, but wanted to do it in a way that offers all the things that you guys offer, the ability to do the due diligence to make sure that the funding, the project, everything is legit and that it's going to actually accomplish what they hope, which is that it will help someone, it'll build a kingdom, it'll somehow advance God's plan. You have an example like that for such a person that that would inspire someone that's listening, or someone in a church, a stewardship leader, or another church leader that could say, "I know a few of those people in my church. Like I want to connect them in a way that they can grow in this gift of giving."
Yeah, I could probably talk for hours, and this obviously excites me as a stewardship pastor in the past and now my role today. There's just so many amazing stories. I think my favorite and probably was the thing that really drew me to this role was we have a donor who doesn't want to be known. He believes that if anybody knows who he is, that he will lose rewards in heaven. And so, look, we're okay with that. We deal with the Green family. Obviously, they're out there front and center of
Hmm.
what they do in generosity space and have impacted, I think, thousands of people through that.
Yeah,
And then
great.
we have this gentleman who is probably doing as much, but doesn't want anybody to know who he is. So, and again, that's up to the individual and their thought process. But his foundation funds giving to retired pastors and missionaries.
Mm,
And so for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been working with him and helping to give to retired pastors. It started out in the Methodist church. He attended a Methodist church and his whole life. And in a conversation with his pastor mentioned that he had 4 or 5 retired Methodist pastors in his congregation, and most of them were from small country churches in the South and didn't have much of any retirement or exempted out of Social Security or both, and were struggling. And so he said the next day he called his pastor and said, "I've been up all night. God's been dealing with me. How do we fix this problem?" And so he created what's called the Shepherd's Fund. And so we manage that for him. Again, very similar to our Helping Hands ministries in that we vet the individual and pay their bills. We do the same thing in this program, where the pastor completes an application, and then we vet them, and then they supply us their bills, and we pay the bills directly. And so this program allows up to $10,000 every year for the pastor and the spouse. And so, if the spouse is living and the pastor is still living, they can both qualify for $10,000 each. So, in that case, $20,000 a year. If it's just the spouse is living, then again, we can help them for up to $10,000 a year. And so we've been able to expand that this year beyond the Methodist Church. We can now offer this to other denominations and now also even missionaries. And so we are just, again, one of those kind of unique situations that we can't really advertise.
mhm.
Obviously, and on this platform, I'm okay with saying it because I trust the people that are on this platform, but we can't, advertise this because
Yeah,
you're going to have everybody come out of the woodwork saying they're a pastor or a missionary. And so we still have to vet them and make sure that it's legitimate. But again, we have a coordinator then that works hand in hand with these servants of God that gave their whole life to serve others and now are able to bless them. And so that program 2 years ago, I think we helped about 700 pastors to that. A little under $7 million was given out in that program. And then last year, we had 1,100 pastors that we were able to help, and about $11 million of giving. And we're trying to get to 20 million this year. And so, this donor has this foundation created. It's set up in perpetuity, where we're able to help even after he's gone, and the foundation will continue and be able to continue to bless these people. And so, getting the word out about that is what we're trying to do right now, and trying to let people know about this man and his generosity to help others. And again, specifically to pastors and missionaries.
yeah. Wow, that's excellent. I love that. Yeah, it's such a huge need. So many pastors, so many couples are being asked to not just sometimes shepherd a small church, but to do it sometimes, in remote countries where they don't have the same benefits they might have here. They don't have the funding to put in a retirement fund. So they're really truly depending on the Lord, not only while they're on the mission field, but after they come off. And I remember a story by Larry Burkett that he shared many times of a couple that was on the mission field for 40 some years, and they came back and he was counseling them on their finances because here they are in their retirement and they just don't have a lot. They weren't able to save anything. And Larry, with the wisdom that God had given him, say, well, did you trust God on the mission field for 40 years? It's like, yeah, we had to. So it's like, well, you can trust him now.
Yeah.
But the reality is that God uses people like this man to make that connection. There has to be someone that God funnels the resources through. And I love that this man has listened, is seeking to do what God's called him to do. But the reason I wanted to share that example or similar example is just simply to inspire people that are listening. And the one thing that you said that's so key is that he set it up in perpetuity. It means that he's not just going to give while he's living. He set it up in such a way that it'll continue to bless, hopefully, many, many, many pastors and their spouses
Yes.
after he's gone. We have the capability of doing that. It doesn't have to be done at a huge scale. Some of us don't have those capacities, or God has just not given us that kind of wealth, but we can still do it.
Right.
Even if it's $100 a month to some ministry that's funding the care of orphans, or like a World Vision or something like that. Well, we can do that and continue to do that even beyond our life. And this is what I like about your ministry, Paul, is that you guys are able to help people to give not just their tithe, not just to support their church, which absolutely should be a priority, but to go beyond that and to really look outside of their own four walls, so to speak, their own spiritual and personal family, and say, God, what else do you want us to do? How
Right.
else can we advance your kingdom? And that's something that every single Christian has the capacity and the capability of doing if they're willing, right? What I love about scripture is that it reinforces these things to help us to have the faith to walk them out. And the scripture that says, he who much is given, much is required. But it also says that if you're faithful with the little, then you'll be given more. But if you're not, then even what you have will be taken away. And I think about that in a very practical way. When we are faithful with what God's given us, when we take the seed and don't eat it, but we plant it and continue to plant it, then God can multiply it. God can give us more and more to do what He's called us to do. And not only does it benefit us, right? Because we will earn rewards in heaven, of course, the joy that we have in this life doing that. But more so than that, it brings glory to God because people get to meet the Lord, get to see God in real practical ways, show up and say, I see you, I'm going to provide for you. And that just lifts everybody up and
Mhm.
points everyone to Christ. And I just love that.
Yeah.
So let's dive into a little bit more about the organization. You did talk about obviously some specific donor funds, some ways that people can give. Do donors have to give to specific needs? I know I've been on your website, I've looked at the different projects that you have, and there are many, but do people have to pick one of those, or are there other options?
No, so we can do it any different way. Typically, the donors come to us and have a project in mind that they
Mm,
or somebody they want to help, or organization, church, so on. But if you don't have a specific organization that you are wanting to help but are just looking to be generous and to give, we will kind of give you potential options. Sometimes we have a general fund where we get requests for help. We can use money out of those funds to help those kind of requests if they don't have a donor to give to. So it's not unheard of for us to do that and help in some of these different projects where maybe funding didn't come in to help someone to save their house, or medical situation. So they can definitely give to that. Sometimes what we can recommend different organizations to give to. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll have a conversation with a donor and kind of hear their heart and kind of drill down and find out, is there some kind of a specific area that you have a heart for? Is it homelessness? Is it children? Is it world missions? Things like that, and kind of drill down and kind of direct them to some of the organizations that we have vetted and worked with over the years. And so locally, we have a foundation here. Again, we're in our main office is in Sarasota, Florida. So we have two counties here, the Manatee County and Sarasota County. So we have the Minnesota Christian Community Foundation. So if it's a local donor, we can point them to dozens and dozens of local Christian nonprofits that are in our community if they want to keep their money local, and they can do it that way. And so there's a lot of different options. We want to make it as simple as the process as we can make it,
mhm.
and give them as many options as possible. Again, trying to make it where people can be as generous as possible and not make it difficult to do so.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the fact that they can actually call and say, "Hey, here's what we're thinking." That it doesn't have to just be done online. They don't have to pick something. But if they just want to give a small amount, maybe a monthly amount or a one-time gift, to general fund, knowing that you guys can steward that and give it to where it's most needed. That's a great option. But also, I really love that they can talk to you or someone on your staff and kind of unfold like this is what we feel God's leading us to do, and
Yeah,
just get that one-on-one personal help to process through that decision. It's not an easy one, and it shouldn't be made kind of in the dark, or not in the dark, but it shouldn't be made in a way that's very limited. They should be able to say, here's what's going on and this is what we feel, and get that that counsel, so to speak, to
yeah.
make sure that they're following God's heart.
Yeah, we have projects that have been going on for 15, 20 years that are ongoing ministries, and people give a monthly gift to those. And then we have those that it's like a one-time thing where, a donor reaches out and says, "Hey, I got a gardener whose truck broke down and he can't work, so I want to create a project to help buy a vehicle for this person." And it's a one-time thing, and we buy the vehicle and that project's over and done with. So we can do it any different way depending on the circumstances.
A question that just occurred to me is, do you guys, I don't know if you fund projects like outside of the US. So what would happen if someone wanted to, let's say, support a church in another country? That country, obviously, if they just give it directly to the country or to the church, they can do that potentially. But if it's not registered in the US, they wouldn't get the tax benefit. Do you guys do any of that that would help a donor to give and still get the tax benefit while giving outside the US?
Yes. So again, because we are a 501(c)(3), you're basically giving the gift to us.
Hmm.
And then, so we're giving you the tax benefit of that. And then we can wire the funds or however it needs to be done outside of the countries.
Nice.
Again, we've done that in multiple countries: India, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Canada. Again, all kind of opportunities out there for missions and missions organizations to help people, through our organization.
That's great. I love that because I know there are people in the US that are funding different churches that they have a relationship with. And that would be a real benefit to be able to continue to do that, but get the benefit of the tax deduction and maybe even increase their gift. I think that'd be amazing.
Right. We want people to know that there's a tax benefit to giving, but that's not ultimately what we're trying to accomplish.
Of course.
But if it's available, we want people to be able to use that. If it's the IRS allows for a tax deduction, we want people to be able to utilize that.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Obviously, the real heart behind it is not a tax deductible because people are already supporting. But if they could find a way to do more and give more, that would be the motivation. So
Exactly.
So, what other organizations fall under your ministry? I know that there's a great way to give. So, just define a little bit for us, because when people go on your website, they'll see Helping Hands Ministries, but then they said, made possible by a greater way to give. So, explain that dynamic because I know there's an umbrella ministry that's funding others. So, explain that for us.
Yeah, so again, Helping Hands Ministries was the initial organization, but because we've grown and some of the laws have changed, we've had to create different organizations over the years. So, a greater way to give is our umbrella organization. And then we have multiple organizations that kind of fall under that umbrella. So, we already talked about Helping Hands Ministries, Helping Hands Support. We've taken properties, we've taken cattle, fruits and vegetables and grains. You can think about just anything under our Helping Hands Support ministry. We have Helping Hands Charitable. We haven't really talked about that one yet. Helping Hands Charitable is a corporate assistance program. So we work with a couple hundred different companies around the country who are basically doing what we've talked about here, but for their employees. So instead of going around and passing a hat and trying to collect funds for an employee who's going through a financial hardship, we can work with the companies to create a that they get the tax deduction for, but also a way to help bless their employees who are going through a difficult time. And the co-workers can also give to that fund pre-taxed. And so again, they know that the money they're giving is not going to some national organization. They don't know where it's really going. They're going to be able to help their coworker, and it just helps save time for the manager and the other employees to try to create opportunities of giving for the coworker. So that's our Helping Hands charitable, and then we have the Shepherds Fund is the fund that we're doing for the pastors and the missionaries we talked about a little bit earlier. So
Mhm.
there's 21 different nonprofits that fall under the umbrella. Some of them are just single foundations and things like that I won't go into detail about. But the main organization, I think we've kind of hit all of those so far.
Okay, so a greater way to give is the umbrella, and then the other ones fall under like Helping Hands. That's great. And you guys definitely are a best kept secret that we need to get out so people understand. You help businesses, you have churches, you have individuals. What a wonderful ministry, really, to allow people to be generous and to maximize that gift. It's a win win. Oh, anything else before we end today? I so appreciate everything you've shared and your ministry. But if there's anything else that you haven't shared that you'd like to share, this is the time.
I would just thank you again for the opportunity and all CSN's done for me in my prior position at Bayside Community Church. And now you guys have been instrumental in my life. And I so appreciate all that CSN does for churches and just, again, appreciate everything you did for me and helped me in my journey as a stewardship pastor. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Paul, again for all that you do, for your faithfulness, not just as a stewardship pastor, but now as a generosity guru. Love that. Love what God's doing, and I love your ministry and the fact that you guys have partnered with us. So we want to let everyone know that you're out there, that you can help in different ways. So if you are interested in learning more about A Greater Way to Give, that's the website, agreaterwaytogive.com. Of course, from there, you can also get Helping Hands Ministry, and that is hhmin.org. So Helping Hands Ministry, hhmin.org. And if you want to get a hold of Paul, you can find Paul at hhmin.org. He will be able to really answer some of your questions. If you have a specific question about how to use this in your church or how to use this individually, how to use it for your business, if you have a business that you'd like to, like he said, help your employees in different ways, this is something that they can help you with. Paul, I so appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing everything you've shared and helping us to understand this ministry much better.
Thank you, Leo.
And I want to thank you for joining us for this podcast. If it was valuable to you, would you do us a favor and just share it with someone, maybe a stewardship pastor, maybe a church pastor that is not aware of our ministry, Christian Stewardship Network. You can find out more about us, what we do, and how to incorporate discipleship in the area of finances and stewardship at christianstewardshipnetwork.com. We have events, we have a membership, we have resources that we built for many, many years. And as Paul said, it's helped all of us. When I was a stewardship pastor, CSN was the go-to ministry to help me understand how to fulfill my responsibility and my role as a pastor and as a stewardship leader. And we want to come alongside you and help you as well. If you have a calling to this ministry, if you're a volunteer or you're on staff somewhere at a church and you say, man, this is a ministry that we really need to incorporate in our discipleship, we'd love to help. Contact us, let us know, and we'd love to come alongside you and be a support and an encourager as you build this ministry. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Stewardship